sure. Brothers, happy Saturday. Merry Christmas, man. I got to say, this season has gone by pretty quickly. It's already 27 degrees out. It has snowed once in Pittsburgh. Man, I mean, I was just in Florida in September, and I was just wearing sandals for 6 months, and now it's back to fucking winter. God, I hate this season. God, if it would just hurry up. All we really have to do is December, January, February, and then March. You know, March is like back to 50s or some cold days, and then there's like some 60-degree days. April's somewhat of a chilly month, but it's totally tolerable here in Pittsburgh, and then we're back in action. Let's talk about a couple things. Number one, so let me just show you guys the Cyber Week special. Is this the one? Okay, so I'm going to keep that on the screen for the rest of the duration of this. Everything's 50% off still for the rest of the weekend. Cyber Week started on Cyber Monday, which was just last Monday. So throughout the whole week, we've had this discount, 50% off coaching, which is the biggest discount I think we've ever run. It's thousands of bucks off of each program, 50% off all the new courses, including Mastering Testosterone Cream, 50% off the source list, 50% off all of the digital guides. Everything's just half off right now. So take advantage of that. I'm going to leave that on the screen. Additionally, let's talk about hybrid protocols as we filter some folks in here for the chat. Look, I sometimes folks come to me and say, like, should I do a hybrid protocol or when should I do a hybrid protocol? It looks cool to like apply some cream and then like you inject some prop a couple times a week. It looks cool. But I want to warn you against just doing a hybrid protocol unless and until these conditions are met. So in other words, hybrid protocols for TRT are not something to just willy-nilly do. They are kind of a last resort to execute if you cannot dial in on one singular ester or one singular test modality. Listen, test cream is amazing, but some people can't dial in exclusively on it, right? They might need an infusion of testosterone cypionate, once every 5 days or 6 days or something, and there are many reasons for that. It's just hard for them to get exactly in the zone with cream, and then that fluctuation of the peak and trough and the somewhat steady state and then the trough of cypionate just ends up working for them. They couldn't achieve it on cypionate alone. They couldn't achieve it on test cream alone. For people that no matter what, they just kind of can't dial in like long esters, and a lot of people, that's the case. It's just difficult to dial those in. Our bodies are not meant for steady state, among other fucking reasons that it's difficult for those to be dialed in for certain individuals. In that case, you say you keep your long ester, but lower the dose, and then you just infuse a couple pumps of cream every day. Those are the situations in which hybrid protocols really fucking work. When you're having trouble dialing in some singular test modality and your body needs fluctuations and needs like a peak and everything and then a trough and everything on top of what you're already doing. Again, though, people have to remember that even those conditions met, the golden rule still applies to TRT, which is estrogen in range and DHT that is toward the top of the reference range or slightly supraphysiologic with functional testicles and a little bit of DHA. I mean, the golden rules still apply. So just think about that when you're thinking about employing hybrid protocols. It's not something that you would just willy-nilly want to do. It's kind of a last resort. It's like, if I can't dial in on these other things, hey, this is the thing to try. This is the thing to try. Frankly, testosterone replacement therapy is not an exact science. Like, there are no protocol. I mean, there are protocols that generally work, but the ones being prescribed from the clinics aren't those. Those don't generally work. They land you with ED, overages, and estradiol, a weird ratio, a skewed ratio of DHT to E2. And so you've got to manipulate it. Cypionate, great example. A lot of people will go on it and they'll go on the lower end doses as to keep estrogen in range because they don't want to take AIs anymore, or they can't. They have side effects. The estrogen gets in range, but the DHT is far too low. What's that about? Well, I mean, if you don't apply cream to the scrotum, which has 5 to 8x more 5-alpha reductase enzymes and is the most permeable site on the human body for testosterone, transdermal testosterone, you'll have less DHT. In that case, it's just about bringing in the cream and getting the DHT. Getting the DHT. Cream is not going away. Besides prop, I think it's the best way to use testosterone. I'm unsure that I will ever go back to an injectable at this stage. Look, I do a lot of experimenting. I do a lot of, every now and then I'll switch protocols for one reason or another. Oh, this is inducing some diffuse hair thinning. Got to, modify this a little bit. HCG is taking my progesterone a little high. Got to modify this. Like every now and then, whatever, right? Coming off a cycle, working down to sports TRT. Those are the kind of things where I had to change things, but I don't really see myself doing injectables exclusively ever again. Yeah. Just some food for thought for you folks. All right, so let's get to questions. Liquid tadalafil. Wait a minute. Do I not have chat up? Here we go. And Clomid. Okay, Dr. Phil. Okay. Is that helping? Is that working for you? Yeah, not something I would personally do, but I mean, you never know. Some certain wacky shit can certainly work for people. Liquid tadalafil sounds interesting. I think the closest I've gotten to that was the troches, like sublingual troche of tadalafil. Shit worked. Here we go. Classic example of why cypionate might suck. Test sip equals insomnia, limbs falling asleep. Let's talk about this. Blunted mood, PTSD. well, it's actually exacerbating some PTSD. PFS symptoms from constant high steady state of androgens. Well, I switched to doing test prop daily, got resolution of all my symptoms. Yeah, the problem there isn't necessarily the high steady state of androgens. It is what the high steady state of androgens creates, which is overages in estradiol. I mean, that's just kind of it. At the same time, cypionate, as I've said, oftentimes proven in blood work that I see from clients, over aromatizes and under converts to DHT. That's the fucking recipe for full sexual dysfunction. Think about that. It's almost like, yeah, of course it would be inducing PFS-like symptoms, because that's what PFS is at its essence, post-finasteride syndrome. It is an overconversion of testosterone to estradiol and an underconversion of testosterone to DHT. That's what it is at its core. And the solution is obviously the antithesis to that. You know, high conversion to DHT, lower conversion to estrogen, while keeping the sex organs functional, namely the testicles, I should say. Cypionate is just an inferior ester, boys. It just really is. That's why I've been riffing on it for fucking years now. Because I just see in real life, I mean, when you've seen countless, I mean, you know, thousands of cases, you're able to extract patterns. And the pattern I'm clearly able to extract is that testosterone cypionate is far inferior when it comes to dialing people in on TRT compared to test cream or test prop. You know, in this case, you switch to doing daily prop, you're getting a peak and a trough. You're not constantly steady state. Hopefully it's a low enough dose where if you're not using an AI, the estrogen just doesn't stay high. It might peak a little bit over range and then drop back down. Your body is getting used to it. You generally need a little less HCG with prop, because it doesn't stick around as much. Therefore, it's suppressing, you know, the HPTA less, and then you end up dialed in. Yeah, this is why I for the longest time, I just did videos about prop. You know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago when I started talking about it. It's just because I seen it work. I seen it fucking work, and now I see Reddit threads today of people that reference my content on prop, and they're like, "I'm finally dialed in on TRT, man. It's been 6 years. Why isn't this shit mainstream?" Just because the medical establishment, you know, has cypionate as front line does not mean it's the best. It just means it's convenient for them, which is sad. Totally sad. Afternoon, brother. I was hoping you could give your opinion. Taking 25 milligrams test prop daily, 500 IU HCG every other day, 22 milligrams zinc daily. Recent bloods came back. Test is 117 nanomolars per liter. Have you ever heard of this? Is that low or something? Because you're referencing UK blood work. And though I do work with people from the UK or from Europe or just kind of over there, we usually have them converted to nanograms per deciliter and picograms per milliliter, or I do that conversion. So please do that conversion, then I can answer you. Vikash, sir, when I get tired, I lose libido. Can you explain how that happens? How and why that happens? I don't know. It depends on the context. I would need the context. Like, are you on TRT? Are you not? Incredibally. Okay, so we've got some actual conversion here. Estradiol 37. Where's the test? Where's the test in nanograms per deciliter? Follow it up with an entire comment of everything. And please super chat that, because that's one of the complex ones. Vakesh guy's got 992 total test. Free is 29. Prolactin 12. Everything on the report is normal, but after a little work, I lose libido and low facial hair and anabolic symptoms. A little bit of work. Hey, brother, you've got to explain yourself, man. I don't know what that means. Tapia. Thoughts on low dose sip with occasional DHT gel in lieu of cream. Don't have it on it. I think it's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Yeah, I've dialed that in before. It was 98 milligrams of test a week, so 14 milligrams a day. This was cypionate, and 1 pump of transcranial cream, 100 milligram per milliliter a day. I did have 330 IU of HCG in the picture every day. So, you know, that I wouldn't call myself an under aromatizer, but if there's average and then low, I'm right in the middle. I'm right in the middle there. So I needed a little more HCG to keep the estrogen, you know, from making me pee out all my water. But because when it gets too low, that's fucking what happens to most of us. And folks think it's the prostate. It's not. It's a lack of antidiuretic hormone. But I think this is fine. I think you're gonna have to dial it in no matter what. But just be careful that the DHT gel doesn't crush estrogen too much because you're already low on cypionate. I don't know how low you are exactly. It has the ability to do that. You find the right dose. I would dose the DHT gel very low, like very low concentration. Dilute it maybe with some MCT oil. Ask Chat how to do that so that you get a milligram per drop if it's a dropper vial, or a milligram of DHT per application. That's kind of the best way to do it. Some people need the high potency 20% shit. But when you're on low dose of cypionate like this, it's probably better to get it to lower concentration. Can we legalize DHT? Brother, I've been asking this question for a long time. I mean, it's the dominant male hormone. It is responsible for keeping our erections healthy. It drives our primitive libido. It is... there's research on it now showing you starve people of DHT, they run into eventual cardiac complications. That would make sense. We fucking need it. We need it. The fact that it's available in other countries as a prescription, but not here, is, the R word, otherwise known as like totally fucking stupid. It's retarded. That's fucking retarded. I'll just say it. I mean, I really don't care. That's just true. It's like, why? But I think we know the answer, right? Because the same establishment that would sell it or would prescribe it profits fucking billions from blocking it. I think you guys know what I mean. Thanks for the Proviron advice. Hey, great. Yeah, Proviron's a hell of a drug. Proviron's a hell of a drug. Brothers, if I could take Proviron twice a day for the rest of my life, I would. It just nukes my hair. It nukes my hair even at 12.5 milligrams a day. It's just a lot of that DHT-like stuff going on. And you can see it in your physique because your physique gets hardened as if, you're on a potent DHT derivative, which I guess Proviron is, because it reduces a bunch of subcutaneous tissue. It does the same thing in your hair, which, makes the hair follicles a lot less healthy. Definitely the test prop vid. Let's go. Hey, Ryan, quick question. What do you think is the minimum DHT level nanograms per deciliter for optimum masculine energy? Minimum is probably 50. Yeah, 50. You want it to be 75. You want it to be 60 to 75. We're slightly supraphysiologic. It's just going to be better for everything. Definitely. I notice a world of difference in, like, I can dial in on a cypionate only protocol, but I wouldn't call sexual function lukewarm. It's like normal. But when DHT's in the picture, it's like, I'm much more horny. It's just out of control. And regarding how I feel in terms of energy and masculinity and stuff, it's a whole lot better. It's a whole lot better. Yeah. You just naturally feel like a man should feel, When our hormones are out of whack, we behave differently. We do not act like true men. And in our essence, like we just fucking don't, And so they have to be in the right. They have to be in the right. Same thing with women, dude. If a woman's estrogen is too low, she is not going to act very feminine. She's not going to be, agreeable or cooperative, and they're going to have all kinds of mental shit going on, like when it's too fucking low. Same thing with too high, of course, but hormones got to be in range. And for males and females, like, you've got to have the balance that really makes sense. And for us, it's a lot of DHT and not a lot of estrogen. That's the bottom line. In my opinion, what's the lowest point of testosterone? Be at a 24-hour trough on daily prop. The lowest point, about 500. That's going to be optimal, 450 to 500, because then for sure you have some time at those lower levels, which means less aromatization. You got to be careful with prop because you start pushing 30, 40, 50 milligrams a day, you're just going to never go below 45 estradiol, and you might peak at 65, which means you're going to have a broken dick most of the time. Most of the time, unless you're one of those anomalous people, which I would wager is probably 1 out of 150 who can sit at 45 estradiol and you're fine. That does not happen often. Man. Incredibally says that 0.5 of Arimidex seems to help with sensitivity and erections, hopefully getting somewhere. Doing blood work within the next couple of weeks to see what it shows. Company offered to do a different blood panel. Yeah, that I would say that's a good thing because it indicates that you're not like a hyper over responder to Arimidex, which a disproportionate amount of people are, which makes aromatase inhibitors impossible for them to take, which makes dialing in TRT tricky because they can't do high doses of test. They've got to dial in at a on a protocol that just lands estrogen in range. and has enough DHT. And one of the only ways to do that in those cases is, of course, low dose sip, assuming you get enough DHT. Sometimes you don't. Or cream with a little bit of sip in it, like a good hybrid protocol. Yeah. Any insights or thoughts on when AAS raw shortage is coming to an end? Raws? I didn't know that there was a significant shortage, but no, I am not in contact with vendors in any capacity in those kind of contexts. All I did was just sort of collect and vet a list. Test in case there was any cross-contamination. My thoughts on apomorphine for libido. As far as I remember, that's really not apomorphine mechanism of action. A non-selective dopamine agonist. Listen, let me just give you guys the truth about dopamine agonists and libido. If a dopamine agonist gives you a surge of libido, it is doing that via lowering your refractory period and reducing prolactin. The agonism of the dopamine receptors, it usually these types of compounds only do that selectively in certain areas like the pituitary and certain dopamine receptors like D2. Like cabergoline does not necessarily give you good libido just because it's agonizing D2 dopamine receptors. If you have other shit you're going to be on a shit TRT protocol and cabergoline will do nothing for you. Nothing. So no, this is also way too general of a question. Because you know what this assumes, and you really need to think about this, and everybody needs to think about this. This assumes that one thing can be responsible for libido, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Doesn't it assume that? And that libido isn't a multidimensional influenced by estradiol, DHT, and neurosteroids, and of course dopamine, and acetylcholine a little bit. So you've got too simple of a perspective on this. It's just not libido is much more multidimensional than that. Hope I'm good. Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Thank you, brother. Professor Pump Lord Ryan, how do you tell Deca water from estrogen water when pics look soft but diet is right? A good question. Any marker besides D2 and prolactin used to confirm the source of water retention? You could look at your antidiuretic hormone and see if it's higher than it usually is, but you'd have to have a baseline to determine that. Yeah, when you have overages in estradiol, the reason you retain water in part is, and I think in large part is because estradiol is one of the only compounds in your body that tells your pituitary to the posterior pituitary, I believe, to make arginine vasopressin or vasopressin, otherwise known as antidiuretic hormone. So basically, when you take diuretics, you just pee a bunch of water out, and so you can't really hold your water. Having high estrogen is like doing the opposite of that via the same chemical. It increases your antidiuretic hormone. Now, regarding DECA versus estrogen, I don't know. I don't know. Sam, sounds like you're on DECA. You ought to test your estradiol, see where it is. Prolactin is really not an indicator of water retention. Preston, I've messed with Test Prop, TPP enanthate cream injectable, and the Test acetate and Test phenylpropionate was probably my favorite. Prop was the best feel, but seemed to fade quickly. Yeah, you might have had to inject twice a day or, slightly increase the dose or change your protocol around or add more HCG. There's all kind of things you can do with that. Cream, too, you should be able to dial that in, although some people can't dial strictly cream in. They need cream plus a low-dose injectable, once a week or once every 5 to 7 days. Just 40, 50 milligrams, 60 milligrams. They just need that somewhat fluctuation and kind of the pharmacokinetics. You're just putting things together that end up working for you. You're trying to figure out what works for you. But Test acetate, huh? That's pretty fucking crazy, man. Dream Chaser's doing some repair work on the brain with 250 of uridine 5 times a week. Will 250 of citicoline 3 times a week be enough choline to pair? Yeah, I think so. I think it's a little too much choline in my opinion, but only if it ends up giving you side effects like lethargy and memory loss and stuff. It's all temporary. It just goes away once acetylcholine goes back to normal in terms of concentrations in the brain. But for sure you can take too much citicoline and it's going to make you feel like shit and make you feel lethargic, and you'll have actual physical symptoms in your head. Your head will feel like foggy and weird. So I think just be careful with that dose, but certainly it's enough. Yeah, you ought to be adding a B complex with every single dose of either of those, as well as a hefty amount of DHA, because that's really the other chemicals that you need for neurogenesis, which is what you're trying to do. Induce neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons in the brain, and the repair of existing potentially damaged ones or malfunctioning ones. Greg Bayer, hey man, for those of you struggling to dial in HCG, how long would you give it before changing the dose? I feel like I always give up on it after a week or two. Well, this is a tricky one. Steady state of HCG is about a week. So after a week of dosing something, you will be at the steady state in the blood of HCG itself, and as well as like the conversion to the metabolites, estradiol, testosterone, and therefore DHT. But HCG is very tricky to dial in. I mean, this is why I do coaching, right? Because this stuff is not easy if you don't know what to do. HCG being pretty estrogenic in two ways, creating more tests, which is aromatizable, and two, telling the Leydig cells to make more estradiol independent of that testosterone. There are two different ways that it's estrogenic. It mucks a TRT protocol up if you're not landing estrogen a little below 25. And then you add the HCG to take the estrogen up to 30, and then you're fine. It can muck it up. Like, let me give you an example of how fucking finicky HCG is. Ready? Excuse me. I was on 5 pumps of 100 milligram per milliliter cream a day, transcrotally, all transcrotally, with 330 IU of HCG a day and 20 milligrams DHA. And that had me dialed in terms of sexual function, and that's a lot of HCG, 330 a day. But it eventually started to induce a little bit of diffuse hair thinning, and I noticed it. My hair kind of, after a haircut, would grow less quickly. And my hair is used to being very healthy, or I'm used to it being very healthy, so I didn't want to do that. So instead of 5 on the scrotum, I switched to 3 on the forearm and 2 on the scrotum to still get enough DHT. But then guess what that did? If I would have keep the HCG dose at 330 the same, guess what that would have done? And what it did, which I knew it was going to fucking do. It made me over-aromatize. So then erections started to get less rigid and libido started to take a little bit of a hit. At which point I lowered the HCG dose by half, and instead of 330 went to 166. Problem solved. Problem solved. So like, it's just an example of how finicky HCG is. If it's the number one problem with HCG is it'll take your estrogen number over your Goldilocks zone. If the dose isn't right, that's just it. That's just it. A lot of people doing 500 IU every other day and shit like that, when their test dose is not landing them at 20 estradiol, they're just causing themselves a headache via over-aromatization. So think about that. Change it to give enough HCG, but not where it over-aromatizes. Run your bloods on estradiol. And if your test dose is 150, HCG is a non-starter, period. If you're not using an AI, because you're just going to have estrogens over range, and shit's going to be fucked up. Hey Ryan, great channel, very helpful. Quick question: 36 milligrams sip every other day. So it's at 17.5 a day. Lowered it down to 34 milligrams every other day. Any reason why my estrogen would go up from 32 to 40 on lower dose? So this is another example of the weird shit that happens with cypionates. I mean, I imagine this is cypionate, right? Like, guy lowered his dose and then estrogen went up. Like, what the fuck? The only thing I can explain, the way that I can explain that would be that estrogen takes some time to clear. You were on a higher dose, right? So then you switch to a lower dose. You're making less DHT from that lower dose. And DHT kind of works in this case to counterbalance a little bit of the estradiol, even the actual blood numbers of estradiol. So that is likely what's happened here. That's kind of all I can assess. But what it looks like is you're just heading down a failing route, switch to cream, dude, so that you have the DHT covered, get the lower concentration 100 milligram cream so you can make finer, shorter stroke adjustments instead of like these big wide ones with the 200 milligram stuff. Get the estrogen to 27. You'll have enough DHT. Factor in an HCG dose that allows you to keep the estrogen at 27 or 30, and you'll be dialed in. Yeah. Greg Bayer, thanks for the super chat, brother. Appreciate the DHT content. It seems a lot of improvements. Yeah, great. I've noticed I'm crazy sensitive though. Can't tolerate 10 milligrams Primo over 3 days after a steady state. What happens? What happens? You need to clear that up because I can't really diagnose that. I can tell you this. I mean, if you have DHT in the system, anything that kind of acts like DHT as well, to some extent, is probably just going to crush estrogen a little too much. I mean, DHT itself, dude, the high potency stuff, very powerful at having an estrogen blocking effect at what I think is the tissue level, not exclusively the blood level, although it might affect blood levels because DHT usually does, just not a ton. But it's going to make your body believe that you have a lot lower estrogen. That shit works that way. You know, the 20% DHT gel, you know, that's on Sourceless, that shit, I mean, it's pretty potent at blocking estrogen-like effects. It's pretty potent, especially if the dose is very high. So that's what I think is happening here, man. I mean, you know, DHT itself is one of the most powerful androgenic steroids that we could take. It's so fucking strong, man. It's so powerful, dude. That's why this is happening, dude. John just brought the cream course. Doc gave me 20% cream. Yeah, that at 100 milligrams testosterone. See, that's normally not how it works. It's usually 10% cream, 100 milligram per milliliter. But what I think you're saying here is that you have that 2 pumps is 200 milligrams. Is it 100 milligram per milliliter? Or is it 200 milligrams per milliliter? What does it say on the vial? Or on the Toppy Click container. Shmulik, love the content, brother. Just order DIM, calcium D-glucarate, zinc. I wanted to know your thoughts on how much E2 can drop. With zinc, you can drop it 20 to 25 points, maybe more. But, you know, the literature suggests the more zinc you take, the more chance you have of inhibiting 5-alpha reductase enzymes. I'm not entirely sure why that happens or how that can happen, but you know, some of these minerals have the ability to block DHT too. So you got to be careful. You can dial zinc in, but you got to find a good set it and forget it dose. And it's usually on the lower end of something like zinc picolinate. There is no free testosterone level you should aim for masculine energy. DHT is what drives that. Sub-Q or IM for HEG, sub-Q 100%. Dream Chaser, you said dopamine DHT receptors. Didn't know there was such a thing. No, I never said that. Nope, I never said that. I know what video you're referring to, and I was referring to dopamine receptors that are modified by DHT. There's no such thing as dopamine DHT receptors. Preston, thanks for the super chat. Brother, world needs more researchers like you, my friend. Thank you for all the stuff you do. You're the fuck man. Hey, thank you, dude. You know, there's a lot of other pretty good YouTubers out there, but there's a lot of folks that are saying things that I just see are not true and they don't bear out in reality. And I can't for the life of me understand why. I think once someone says, hey, I believe you don't have to manage estrogen and like, you know, has this whole complex fucking ultimately bullshit argument for, you know, for why, even if like reality goes in the counter to what they're saying, if they've said it for long enough, they're not going to change stances. Cause that would mean they would have to get up publicly and say, I was wrong. People don't want to do that. So they just stick with it and they want to make their theory work in real people. It's the most bothersome thing. It's like troubles me a bit when, you know, there's actual doctors, medical doctors. And these are TRT people that do content on TRT and shit who are giving bad advice to their patients, and their patients will, as defectors, come to me for coaching, and I look at their stats and their, you know, blood and their symptoms, and I'm like, no wonder, you know, these guys got you on wacky fucking protocols. At the same time, you know, there are people who say it like it is, who say it like the truth of these matters. TRT, libido, erections, keep estrogen in a healthy range, have enough DHT. You know, guys like Vigorous Steve, Dave Lee. I mean, there are some others, but off the top of my head, I mean, that's what comes to mind. They highlight the importance of this shit, especially DHT. But Steve also makes it known that, you can't just have estrogen fucking in noodle dick zone. You're going to have noodle dick. Thanks, though. I really appreciate that, man. RTJ family. Coming off 100 milligrams test sip per week. Been doing 250 IU/HCG twice per week. What are your general thoughts on PCT, even though this wasn't a cycle or something like this? So now you're doing 250 of IU of HCG as your PCT? If you're coming off 100 milligrams of test, honestly, use HCG. The best way to do it, but it won't be symptom free. You'll probably feel like dog shit for a little bit. Would just be to use HCG, keep the balls functional, keep that engine rolling, and just remove the HCG. Then you're going to go through a 2 to 3 week period of feeling like pretty bad, where test levels are going to drop. But if everything is going to recover, then it'll just happen, within the ensuing 2 weeks or something after that. I mean, right away, after you remove all exogenous hormones and your pituitary is healthy, it's going to start going, wait a minute, your body's going to start bugging out. We don't have any testosterone. Better start fucking creating this shit. That's honestly what I would suggest. I'm not a huge advocate nor expert on PCTing at all, because I'm not an advocate on getting off of TRT. You can make any of it work. Believe me, I've had all the side effects that people get off of TRT for. I just adjusted and figured it out. Anyone can do that. How important is DHA sulfate for DHT optimization? Not really that important. Not that I know of anyway. Greg Bayer, thanks for the super chat again, brother. Yeah, just get low E2 symptoms. Currently started 15 milligrams prop daily. 500 IU HCG every third day with 5 milligrams of Primo before my blood work in a couple months. Any opinions on it? Good or bad? No. Refresh me on your situation. You're saying that if you take DHT, you can't take Primo because you get low E2 symptoms. It's exactly what I said then. You're just lowering the E2. So don't take the Primo, dude. Decide what is better for you. Because Primo acts as an AI to an extent too. So it will lower some estradiol on your blood. So decide what is better for you. The Primobolan and, the anabolism you might get from that, or the DHT, the sexual function, whatever other benefits you're getting from the DHT, man. In that case, though, if you want to keep everything in there, you're going to have to increase that prop dose so you aromatize more. That's the bottom line. You're the best, Ryan. When she does 3 pumps at 20% cream, how many milligrams of test are you suggesting? I forget what that totally is in milligrams, because I never really look at the milligrams, because it doesn't matter. Because if you try to compare it to injecting Cypionate milligram for milligram, you're like, wait a minute, I'm injecting 300 fucking milligrams. It's not the same thing when it's in and out of your system very quickly. So I wouldn't even look at that. I wouldn't even look at it. You shouldn't even care about it. There's no reason to really care about the milligrams. So all it's going to do is confuse you because you compare it to injections. Yeah. 3 pumps of 20% cream, though, is like, it's 2 or 3 pumps are the only protocols that generally work for people. Otherwise, you're going to over convert to estradiol. Things just won't be right on that 20% stuff. That is why go to the 100 milligram per milliliter stuff. Sky U, interested in Telegram consultation, just wondering if it's done via text chat or phone call. It is done via text chat because it clearly has we have another option very clearly that is a phone call. Yeah, Telegram is just a text chat. So you can send me your information, send me your the basis of your problem. I will fact find with you a little bit and try to figure out why you're having the problem you're having, and then make follow-up suggestions to you via Telegram. It's a consult. It's like it's just done via Telegram. And frankly, folks might think, oh, that's not a comprehensive way. Well, of course, it's not a coaching package where I'm working with you one-on-one every day, every other day, listening to your feedback, looking at your protocol, making adjustments to your protocol, analyzing your bloods and where estrogen is going, and figuring out what profile you are. Do you need more DHT? Do you need a little more HCG? How do we dial this profile in? But still, folks are going to get... I will give you good advice, figure out what your situation is, and then point you in the right direction on where to go. If you have the budget, though, you're better off going with coaching. What could indicate I don't have adequate SHBG? Sub 5 SHBG? DHEA does convert test to DHT in the penis. It's one of the things that it makes that you have, intrapenile DHT. So it's important. I think it's, DHEA is kind of like cheap DHT. It just gives you a little more DHT. Yeah. And it helps with intrasex organ conversion to DHT. Preston, listening to you dive into nuance over the years and relentlessly questioning dogma has helped me get better results than most of my peers, and also helped me in ever endeavors aside. This is a good point, because that's what ultimately it takes, Yeah, I mean, listen, I am a 41-year-old dude with multiple fucking six figures in the bank. Nobody my age that I know has that, because I've been bucking all the trends and telling the world, fuck you, when it tries to tell me this is normal, do this is normal. I've been like, none of this is fucking normal. You guys are idiots. Every social thing is wrong. Everything popular is wrong. Remember that phrase. Everything that's popular is wrong. If you want to get somewhere in life, you have to think very differently than everybody else who's not getting anywhere. Think about it, right? If folks are out there not really getting anywhere, don't think like them. Every single, it's obvious to me, and I think it's obvious to a lot of you folks too, like every single badass, like millionaire person or person who's just super self-made, people who've done insane shit, all the way back to like Thomas Edison and sitting there in his fucking lab and, creating electricity or like, using it. Like these people are unorthodox people. You have to be unorthodox to get unorthodox results in this world. In a world where everything wants your fucking money, your rent, your car payments, your mortgage, if it is, your fucking insurance, taxes on your house, groceries are expensive. Oh, well, it's January. Got to get your car inspected. You need 4 new fucking tires. Oh, now you need brake fluid. Brakes are coming up in 6 months. Got to swap them up. Probably going to need rotors too. Everybody wants your money. In that world, you must make a lot of it. You must make a lot of it. That's part of understanding this. People bitch and complain about capitalism as if they, because they don't like it. They, in other words, they don't like that, you've got to increase your skill level to be awarded through your work a commensurate level of income. That's how it fucking is. Hate it or love it, capitalism is not going anywhere in the States or elsewhere. So you can either bitch about it and hate it and be one of those people that looks at some problem without the intention of solving it, but with the intention of complaining about it, which makes you what? A complainer. Someone who does nothing about a problem they see in their lives but complains instead. Or you could realize, yeah, maybe I don't love the game. I don't love the game, but I've got to play. And here's a game in which I'm a part, because I have to be, because I live here in the States or wherever you're in a capitalistic country. It's either going to beat me or I'm going to win. How do you not have the standards, to make it so that you win? Anyway, I went on a tangent, but generally, yes, you must, to get better results in life, you have to think fucking way differently than normal folks. Let normal folks be swayed by other people, swayed by cliques, swayed by the popular kids, swayed by this and that. Have to submit to the man, have to let them do that shit. Deep down, they are terribly unhappy people, do unorthodox shit to get unorthodox results. And by the way, that doesn't mean that people that are unorthodox are happy all the time. I get profoundly unhappy when I'm trying to reach a goal and I'm having trouble reaching it. But the unhappiness is what makes me get my shit in gear and fucking get it done. Theoretically speaking, could one dose test cream multiple times per day to gain different pharmacokinetic effect? Well, yes, you can. Keeping the system throughout daylight hours. Well, of course you could. It's likely, though, if you do that, to just make you over-aromatize. Good afternoon, brother. While I wait for HCG to come in from source, could I run and clomiphene in its place? No, I wouldn't do that. It's not like you can just like instantly switch. And clomiphene's going to make you make a bunch more hormones, tests specifically. It's blocking estrogen receptors, which is probably going to mess with your libido. In the meantime, I would not do that. Would I consider making a video on Taco Trinos as TRT add-on? Not an exclusive video, probably, because I have discussed it at length. Just to find the content. My doc gave me a pump dispenser that gives 500 milligrams or half of a mil per pump. Do the dispensers you reference dispense that much cream per pump? No, not at all. Not at all. No, brother. No, that's way too much. Guys, for the whole, well, basically for the rest of the weekend now, because this has been going on all week. This is over soon, but all week we've had Cyber Week discounts where everything is 50% off. The Roman Emperor says it all. The Roman Emperor here. His name is Larry, by the way. His name is Larold. Look at Larold. Look at him. Look at Larold. Look at him. Look at him. Look at Larold. Look at him. Hi, I'm Larold. I'm Larold. Hey, I'm Larold. 50% off, boys. Everything. LiveCortex.com. I think the best bang, everything's like the best bang for your buck. The courses, Mastering Test SIP, Mastering Test Cream, Source List, obviously. But coaching is the best bang for your buck, because whatever program you want to sign up for with me, you're saving thousands of dollars with that code. Do it up, livecortex.com, brothers. Can I do a video on BPH while on TRT? Thanks for all the great info. Potentially, it's just not something I really see all that often. I think I see a lot of people confusing what is ultimately symptoms related to estrogen that they are like attributing to generally being on TRT and that they call BPH. You know, estrogen is what drives prostate problems, not DHT. I mean, that's just proven at this point. We're taking injectable allopregnanolone. Be good for PFS? No. Why? Is that what you're referring to? Allopregnanolone? No. Why? Why would it be good for it? You guys with PFS need to understand something. Libido and erections and sensation and climax, these things are not singularly dimensional. They're multidimensional. Dopamine has to be firing on all cylinders. You have to have high DHT. You have to have estrogen in range. You have to have functional testicles. You got to have a little neurosteroidal support with DHEA, not pregnenolone. The golden rule of exogenous hormone replacement always applies. Estrogen in range, high DHT. Allopregnanolone, how does that factor into that, man? It also, if you ask the question, does one singular thing help this complex problem? That assumes you don't know that the thing you're dealing with is a complex problem with many facets, that go into it, and you've got to know that. You've got to know that, brother. Tried Test Ace yet? No. Didn't think anything would feel better than Prop, but I was wrong. No PIP. Interesting. Nah, I don't need to do anything different. I did a lot of experimenting over the years and stuff, and I think the only next thing I'll do is just do a test cycle, which I already kind of know how to do and know how to dial in the libido and the erections to the greatest extent possible. They're not quite perfect on cycle for me, but I did figure out how to make everything work. But it means I really just don't have an interest in experimenting with much of anything other than just being super dialed in at the moment and waking up with wood every day and being like insatiably horny fucking most of the time and erections that never fail. At this point I don't really feel like I want to change anything. I've also got a lot of other things going on in my life, so thinking about doing some new experiment, I just don't have the mental space for it. It's bad enough that Call of Duty launches Black Ops 7 Warzone and it's fucking slow and stupid. I already got enough problems, man. Greg Barry, yeah, I find DHT derivatives really help my libido. Just give me low E2 symptoms so easily. Yeah, so you just got to be careful with it. Same thing can happen on just cream. Dude, supercharges libido, and then if it's just too much DHT, you start having symptoms of low E2. So you've got to balance that out appropriately with more HCG or maybe just a divvying of the application from the forearm to the scrotum. You got both, so you never have that. TRT is absolutely about finding the scientific way it works for you, how to work for you. Yep. Sorry, brother, man. I just meant to say the dispenser puts out 0.5 milliliter by volume. Do most Topiclics do 1/4 ml by volume per pump? 1/4 ml per pump? I think so. I think it's 0.25 mil per pump, but it might differ between the 100 milligram and the 200 milligram concentrations. Is Adderall bad for your T regimen? No, it's not. But Adderall is bad for libido generally, because what I think it does is, listen, I think you're inhibiting the dopamine transporters, right? So that you accumulate more dopamine in the synapse that way. you prevent the reuptake of dopamine and the clearance of dopamine. There is a region of your brain which ultimately is responsible for making that dopamine that goes into circulation. It's called the ventral tegmental area. And when you have enough dopamine at the synapse induced by something like Adderall, your brain stops making dopamine at the level that it used to. Because otherwise then you have an overage of dopamine and you start running into fucking shaking and shit, like, Parkinson's-like symptoms. So if you want to lower your natural dopamine production, take Adderall. That's not good. What that tends to do is fucking kill people's libido. Yeah, I mean, back in the day when I was working strictly with nootropics, I would have to revive people's libidos by I mean, it was mostly ended up being on hormones, but like addressing the fact that Adderall killed their libido. I mean, I have people with full-blown post-Adderall syndrome where they had no libido, they had anhedonia, and that was related to making less dopamine. For someone that had high prolactin for a while, how can they reverse or rehab the dopamine damage that way? This is a good question. I think the only answer to that would be lots of DHT, obviously cabergoline to keep the dopamine, to keep the prolactin in check. Assuming you have something that's just making you make a lot of prolactin, which would be kratom or pituitary adenoma, prolactinoma. The damage that looks like is done in these cases is the tubuloinfundibular dopamine neurons. That's what looks like may actually be damaged. So, I mean, high DHT, estrogen in range, it can't be over. It's going to fuck with you completely. Obviously, did I say estrogen in range? Yeah, I said that. And being in control of whatever the fuck was causing you to have high prolactin. I mean, if it's an adenoma, man, you're going to have to take bromocriptine or cabergoline for years unless you do the transphenoidal surgery, which, means they go up into your nose and try to take the tumor out. But, that comes with its own risks, namely shutting off your other pituitary hormones if they make a mistake. So, yeah, I mean, keep taking the dopamine agonist if the prolactin will go out of range if you don't take it. Other than that, once it's in range and it's not going consistently out of range, so say you don't have a prolactinoma, you just got to get on the right hormone protocol, have enough DHT, have estrogen in range, have functional testicles, have a little bit of DHEA in the protocol. The only thing additionally you can do is take 9-MEBC. 9-MEBC. That is the only additional thing that you can do. Let's see here. I have to answer a text from my lady. Okay. I want to switch from see how good I am? Boyfriends, you got to be like that. I want to switch from test E to test C and add in prop for the benefits. What would be the smartest way to do this? To switch from test E to C? The most affordable place for blood work is discountedlabs.com. Hold on one sec. Oh, that's just gold. Okay. If you're going to change from enanthate to cypionate, just do it. I mean, they're not much difference in terms of pharmacokinetics, even though, it's a little bit of a difference. I would say probably lower the dose. Yeah, because cypionate, you're going to end up having problems with the same dose that you used on enanthate. Prop for benefits. Why, though? How? This is too general a question, man. What benefits? Like, you got to understand how I've said this countless times, like regarding hybrid protocols. Why do it? The only reason you would do a hybrid protocol is you can't dial in otherwise, and you're going to need kind of a peak and trough with that hybrid. Or if you need more DHT, usually the fast ester for more DHT is cream, but sometimes prop will do. This is too complex of a question. You should super chat it, man. And then we can get into protocols, or better yet, do coaching or something. Fro, with labs in range, but bad ED on 14 milligrams sip each day, 150 IU HCG every day. How many milligrams of cream would you suggest to take every day instead of test cypionate? It's not in milligrams. You should think of it in terms of pumps. of 100 milligram per milliliter cream. Yeah, get the cypionate out. Do 5 pumps of 100 milligram per milliliter cream on the scrotum every day. Keep your HCG exactly the same. You're probably going to dial in perfectly on that. Tim, my dose of 20% test cream is dialed into around 1,100 total tests, E2 25 to 30. Masteron and Primo crushed my E2 too much, even at a low dose. Surprisingly, microdosing trend at 5 milligrams per day has been incredible. For what, libido? I mean, people do say that. I'm curious as to how you're able to hold 1,100 tests with E2 at 25 to 30. Is that because, the cream is really working pretty powerfully at converting a lot to DHT? Or are you taking something else to lower it? Sorry for such a newbie question, but is there actually a blood test for DHEA? It's DHA sulfate. That's pretty much all we can get as far as I know. 114 RTP. Been running Testy 140 with daily injections of 100 IU HCG daily for about 2 months with no AI. I feel great. You think my estrogen will stay in range at those doses? If it's been 2 months now, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, that's I can tell you at 140 of test with no HCG, my E2 fell below range. Below. It was not optimal. I was having low E2 symptoms, so I needed a little more HCG. I can tolerate that much test with about 100, 125 IU HCG a day, and that works out. I just don't feel as awesome and as masculine, and frankly, the erections aren't as hard as with cream. It's just putting the DHT right at the source there. But I think if you've been on this for 2 months and estradiol is not over your Goldilocks zone and you're in the zone, then I think that's wonderful. Stay there. And I think, no, it's probably not going to go out of range. Just don't increase the HCG dose. Don't do that, because then it probably is going to. The truth, best starting dose for Aromacin depends on the test dose, doesn't it? Doesn't it? No, doesn't it? Think about it, brother. There's no best starting dose. Depends on the context. Oh, guys, you got to think about everything in context. If you're mega dosing test at like 300 plus a week, you're looking at least 6.25, 12.5 milligrams, 6.25 to 12.5 every 5th or 6th day, something like that. If you're a low end aromatizer, if you're on a high dose, 6.25 milligrams every 5-6 days. The best frequency for Aromacin is every 5 to 7 days. That's what I found, but there is no best dose. It all depends on what's going on with your protocol. Danny Hearn, 49 years old, 6'1", 195 pounds, 14% body fat. No hormone replacement yet. Was working on losing fat first. Test 545. Yeah, you're on the low end of normal. Free 6 point on estrogen 32. Those aren't great numbers. At least estrogen's not super high. Plan is to start 14 milligrams SIP and 150 IU HCG. Well, I mean, if at 545 test you have estrogen at 32, that's already a bad ratio. So you're probably going to want to not dose cypionate, which tends to also create a bad ratio of DHT to estradiol or of test to estradiol. Hold on. Orange juice break. You're better off starting transcranial cream, Danny. Yeah, get the 100 milligram per milliliter stuff and do 5 pumps a day. That HCG dose is perfect for that. Start there. Get bloods after about 4 weeks, specifically on estradiol, ultra sensitive, and see where total testosterone is. Do this at trough, not at peak, and then decide what to do or how to adjust from there. 2, keep estrogen between 20 and 30. That's what you have to do. There are none, just take 20 milligrams DHA a day. Honestly, I've not seen one blood level of DHEA be better than another, except for too much DHEA is going to cause diffuse hair thinning, hair loss. It's going to cause libido and erection problems and overstimulation and aggression. Yeah. To answer your question, I think I'm just an under aromatizer. I'm on 2 clicks per day of the cream and use Anavar 12.5 milligrams only pre-workout. Hey, that's good shit right there. Microdose of Tren was an idea from Vigorous Steve for recomp. That guy knows what he's talking about, brother. What HCG dose is recommended for PFS? It depends. Guys, you're doing HCG monotherapy, meaning none. None dose, because that assumes you're doing strictly HCG, which I would not do. Nope, I would do tests plus HCG plus DHEA. Yeah. Listen, as I've been alluding to several times in this video, you need to have nuance when you're approaching complex endocrine dysfunction like this. Libido, erection, sensitivity, they're multidimensional. And HCG alone can't solve that. HCG is a highly aromatizable, highly estrogenic compound. So, I mean, you've got to have enough DHT to offset that. And the only way you're going to do that is with test cream. Most PFS people just do better on cream. Yeah, test cream. That is the answer to that, man. Can't think about it too simply. And no, HCG monotherapy is not a good idea for PFS. It just because you have to understand your problem, right? Your problem is you've historically for a long time, considering you took finasteride or whatever, you over-convert to estradiol. Your testosterone, it becomes more estrogen than it should and less DHT than it should. HCG, given that it's estrogenic a lot, is going to be not your friend, considering your problem is you over-aromatized to estrogen and you under-converted test to DHT. So how would a pretty estrogenic compound help you used in exclusivity in a PFS case? It wouldn't. It would make things worse probably. It might give you some more libido and erections might get better. You'll never solve the problem because you're not going to be able to dial in on it. Dialing in is where you need to be. Steven is taking 2 clicks of 400 milligram concentration cream in the morning, 10 of DHEA, 5 milligrams born at night. 26-hour trough is 115 DHT. That makes sense because that's super high of a dose. E222 on my 6-hour peak DHT. Oh, that's great. Are you taking an aromatase inhibitor here? Because that boron is definitely not blocking estrogen at that level. I'm curious what total test was. I mean, these aren't bad numbers, dude. I don't know if we have from you like an explanation of where you are. This is the kind of shit I have seen on cream, though. I mean, you could have exponentially higher numbers of test and DHT, but the estrogen doesn't show for it. That's why cream's so awesome. You know, it's the perfect solution. So if you use cybercode cyber 50, the Telegram consultation would be $250. No, that's already a reduced price. Cheaper option. So it doesn't apply to that. It doesn't apply to the phone call either, nor the 1 month. If you're doing a 3-month program, a 6-month, or a 1 year, then you get 50% off. But the Telegram consult is already cheap, brother, already cheap compared to other things. And if you're having issues, with, I think Telegram's $4.99 or something, then, just consider waiting a while and saving some money up, or otherwise be a man, go out there and make fucking money, brother. This world ain't fucking cheap, dude. Everyone wants your money. As I said, your rent, your mortgage, your electric, your phone bill, everything, Oh, now I need brake fluid suddenly in my car. Oh, I got a little chip in my tire and I'm going to get it inspected. Need a new tire, but can't just replace one. Need all 4 tires fucking replaced. Oh, now it's $2,000 the bill. Recognize what world we're in, man, bro. I know that sounds harsh, but you'll thank me one day. You have to think like that. That's how I think. You know how much money I pay out per month or per 6 months in just everything, bills, expenses, and whatever. My car, every time something's wrong on my fucking car, it's $5,000 to $10,000. Very rarely is it $2,000. If something's really wrong. I had to replace an evaporator once on my old BMW 7 Series, among a few other things. And the bill was like $9,000 fucking bucks, man. Got to make money, brother. But comb through the content. If you're in a place where you can't afford the consults and stuff, comb through the content. A lot of answers are there. How fast after HCG 500 IU shot can estrogen start to increase? That day, instantly, within about an hour. I started HCG 250 IU daily, 0.4 test, 0.4 of what milligram per milliliter concentration? Can't answer you, brother. Do you think free testosterone level is more important than total testosterone? No, I do not. And if so, what minimum? Quite honestly, yeah, those are surrogates for total T. Just how much are you converting to be biologically available? It's all free really is. But when it comes to TRT, you're really just looking at DHT and estradiol. You can look at total T because it'll give you information. Like, if your estrogen's at 35, but total T's at 540, you have an over conversion problem. of test to estradiol. But it's just, you got to look at the DHT and the estradiol. Those are the two numbers to be looking at in terms of, trying to analyze and get your protocol in place where sexual function's good. Need high DHT, need lower end estradiol to have good sexual function on TRT. That's just it. I mean, it's the golden rule, boys. It's the golden rule. It is the rule that is golden. Golden rule. It is the golden rule, brethren. Any other questions, boys? If you got them, ask them. Hope you guys are ready for Christmas. It's coming up pretty quick here in a little bit. Gonna have to get presents for the little ones. I haven't put my tree up. I will, I guess, soon enough. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really that interested in it. I don't know. I mean, this year, Christmas is fun because if you have family, you get together with them, and that's kind of cool. You get like a period of time where you really don't have to work. Everybody's kind of off, which is good. For me, I'm never technically off, but at least it gives me an excuse because the rest of the world is off, where I don't feel guilty about like kind of not working. Although I'll still be putting out, content here and there around Christmas. But yeah, I'm ready for Christmas because it means we get into the new year, which means we get into February, which means we get into March, which means we're close to spring. That's all I care about. Wearing sandals again, brothers. Ramiro, I'm upping the T by taking clomiphene instead of HCG. Currently 200 milligram per milliliter every other day injections. Total T around 900. Any sup you recommend? I don't know what you mean. Supplement I recommend for what, bro? For what? Just type it in the chat. You got to be way more specific than that. You're upping the T by taking clomiphene instead of HCG. Currently 200 milligram per milliliter every other day injections of what? Test Total T around 900. Any supplement you recommend for what? Supplement for what? For what, dude? To increase vitamin E concentrations? I just don't, you got to know that's a question that doesn't have a question, or at least it's not answerable. Seasonal depression is hitting me hard as fuck already. Yeah, bro. Yeah, it just when you get used to, like, I mean, this summer me and my girlfriend would just go out like at least every other night, like just multiple times a week, in our sandals in 85-degree weather, and go eat dinner outside somewhere like in downtown Pittsburgh, and have a beer or two and just have like a good time, and be getting like miles of exercise every day that we would go out. We can't do that now. We go indoors. We go like, Friday, Saturday nights or something. We'll go to our favorite pizza place. We both, I go to the gym, and, she works out at home if she can manage it. And it's just not the same, so it's also dark and gloomy. Here in Pittsburgh, it starts getting dark about 5:30 p.m. Whereas in the summertime, it's light still at about 8:45, 9 p.m. So it's a whole different world. It's almost like just the world has shut down. The world shuts down. Everything shuts the fuck down. People start shutting down. You go outside, no one looks happy because everyone's got like 3 layers of shit on, plus a coat, a scarf. And, their feet are borderline numb because it's fucking 20 degrees out or less, God forbid. When it gets into February, it's going to be pretty fucking terrible here. Yeah, it sucks. It's a sucky season. This is why people move to Florida. In September, I was in Miami Beach. And, yeah, it was humid, but like it's just every single day we could go by the pool. It's like that in November too, and it's also like that in March. Whereas here it's cold both months. We're going back to Florida in March. The moment March hits, like I'm going to be booking flights in mid-February. I swear I want to go like the 10th of March or something, 5th of March, just right away. We're going to Florida so that we can enjoy some good weather and then come back and it'll be almost spring. Seasonal depression's a real thing, dude. Real thing. You gotta try to stay happy though. Just do different things. Me and my girl do funky shit. Like we both got matching flannel, like red and black pajamas. So we look like that couple, and we watch a lot of movies. It's just what you do in the wintertime. So try to take advantage of it in that regard. Always make yourself happy. Always make yourself happy, man. So the lower estradiol, the better. Well, to a point. Below 20 usually is problematic, because, libido and erections might be fine, but you're probably not going to retain a lot of water, and that's going to dysregulate your electrolyte balance, among other things. Also, though, typically when you get too low on estrogen, libido is the first thing to go south. It goes south. Yeah, it goes south. Erections might be fine. Then there's the point at which estradiol is too low. Both libido and erections go fucking south. So, it's one of those things. But does it mean DHT ratio is superior than my estradiol, or is estradiol below 20 still bad? I don't know about I'd have to see the DHT to understand that ratio. Yes, Trey. Just get through it, bro. Just get through it. We all have struggles, dude. We just got to suck it up and get through it. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, some bad thing happened in my life, and it sort of put me in a bad place for a little bit. But you just fucking muscle through it, dude. You muscle through it. You muscle through it because, looking at from the 50,000 foot view, every bad thing that's happened to you in life, you always made it to the other side. You always made it. So when you're feeling seasonal depression or just fucked up about something in life, recognize it is temporary. Brain tends to trick us into thinking bad things mean that life is going to be bad forever. It won't. You'll snap out of it. Things will get better. Do the things that make you happy in the meantime. Progress makes me happy. Any kind of progress makes me happy. Business progress, otherwise progress in gaming makes me happy, honestly. Learning new shit, getting better at something, doing something. We're all not different from when we were kids and we made macaroni pictures for our parents and said, "Here, Mom, check it out." And they gave us praise and we felt good. We still want to do that. But, we might be the only people giving ourselves praise. So accomplish it so you can be proud of yourself. Sorry, I went on a tangent there, brother. If my free T3 is lowish, medium, is desiccated thyroid supplement recommended? Yeah, I think that you asked this last week. I think that'll be fine. No, thyroid hormones are the only things that really don't tend to mess with your endogenous production. You can use vitamin D, lamp. I don't know what you mean there, but I just love that you said lamp as part of it. Yeah, I take 6,000 IU a day of that stuff. Pretty good. Pretty okay. Cyber Week boys, look at the Emperor. His name is Larold. 50% off all products, says Larold. Look at the Emperor. Look at the Emperor. Look at him. Look at the Emperor. Look at him. Look at the Emperor. 50% off, brothers. Everything. That's going to end at the end of the weekend. So that's going to be tomorrow, 11:59 p.m. So Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Those of you that want 50% off products right now, including coaching, all the major coaching programs are half off. It's like a $2,500 save on the 3 months. It's a $4,500 save on the 6 months. It is an $8,000 discount on the 1 year. This is the time to do it if you've been thinking about doing it, boys. All right, I'm going to end the stream. Kick-ass questions, boys. This week, I might be having some technological problems that are going to prevent me from editing, so I might just be doing live streams throughout the week, so please look forward to that. Those are fun, and I know you guys love those, and I love them too. Otherwise, kick-ass, rock on, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Use the code CYBER50, as I said, on the top right of your screen for a fucking massive discount on every TRT product, with the exception of the Telegram consult and the call with me, livecortex.com. And stay warm, brothers. Stay warm. Summer's coming in 5 fucking months. Damn it. Peace.